Good afternoon, friends. Happy Friday. I am here today to talk to you about managing pelvic pain, pelvic area pain, low back pain, hip pain during pregnancy and postpartum, and how we manage and how we care for this and how we can maybe give ourselves some comfort measures to start feeling better or to exercising with less pain. I am Lauren Anderson. I am co-creator of the Stronger Mom Collective with Lauren Mott. I am a exercise physiologist, a personal trainer, and a yoga teacher focusing and specializing in pre- and postnatal fitness and movement. So let's talk a little bit about pelvic pain and why it may be occurring, and then we can jump into kind of some tactics you can use, some strategies you can use to reduce the pain. First and foremost, as we always say, whenever you have pain, please, if you have access, go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. They are accessible to you during both pregnancy and postpartum. Some of these tips, though, will help you find some comfort and relief until you can see one or an absence of having access to a pelvic floor PT. So as I said, the first thing we want to talk about is why this might be happening. So during pregnancy, we hear this all the time, the pelvic area, the joints, the connective tissues that keep the joints together, they start to soften up because of progesterone and because of relaxin, other hormones going on in there to help soften so that we can birth the baby. What happens though, because of the softening of these connective tissues, it can change the way that the forces are relayed to the other parts of our body. So our muscles create force, and then that it gets passed into our bones via our connective tissues, just as briefly as I can summarize that. And when a tissue is altered in that way, like the connective tissues during pregnancy because of the hormones, it can change the way the forces kind of are managed and we're thinking about the pelvic area here. So the hips, the low back, the sacrum, the SI joints, and then the pubic symphysis. So we're thinking about all of these different joints in the pelvic area. The other thing that's happening during pregnancy, other than the changing of the tissues, the softening, the changing of the forces, is that our center of gravity is changing, which also changes the force distribution, but we're getting bigger right in the midsection, right? We're starting to grow in the anterior portion of the front portion of our body, and so the weight is shifting. And so the forces, the way that they are going throughout our body have shifted a little bit because now our center of gravity is a little bit shifted forward. So what we can do is we kind of, not to talk in too many biomechanical terms, but we have to think about kind of where the forces are happening on the body. So that's as much biomechanics as I'll talk about. I'm sorry. The first thing we want you to think about is reducing intensity. So can you reduce the speed, the load, the amount of impact your body is making on the ground? So this might look as if you're a runner and you're running through your pregnancy, slowing your pace, or maybe moving on to speed walking. If you're lifting weights, reducing the amount of load that you're using, so your weights that you're using, your barbell that you're using, and then placement of that load, and then reducing your impact. So if you're doing jump squats or high intensity interval training, can you not jump? Can you maybe touch the ground and spring up and come onto your toes? So reducing your speed, reducing your load, reducing your impact. Reduce your intensity of the exercise you're performing. The second thing we'd love for you to think about is to change the weight distribution. So I kind of mentioned this in the last one as we're talking about load, but depending on where you're holding that weight or you're putting that weight, it's going to push the force down into the pelvic area in different ways. So if you're experiencing pain doing wide-legged squats or lunges, bring the legs a little closer together. Do a close squat, do a close lunge. Maybe move the weight around and see if you can place the weight in a spot that reduces how you're feeling that force in your body. So if goblet squats are causing you to feel pain, can you hold the weights at your sides? Can you take one weight away and just do a one-sided squat? We have to think about where the weight is. The other thing I want you to think about in load and weight distribution is using support systems. So a bench squat instead of an air squat where you don't have any support behind you, or maybe holding onto a wall while you perform an exercise. So a weight in one hand, a hand on the wall, and then doing the squat that way. The third thing I'd like you to think about is your breathing and your pelvic floor control. So if you are doing a pelvic floor contraction, and I'm not saying you have to contract you have to be consciously contracting your pelvic floor when you're exercising, but if it is something that you are paying attention to, are you contracting both anterior and posterior pelvic floor equally? A lot of times we either tend to clench the anterior pelvic floor or vaginal area, or we contract the posterior pelvic floor, the anal area, and we need to do both kind of in an equal fashion so that those connective tissues aren't pulling in one way or the other. The other thing I want you to think about in this kind of dynamic is your breath. So if you're doing a pelvic floor contraction, can you coordinate your breathing with your pelvic floor? If we're just focusing solely on our breathing, exhaling during exertion, Lauren and I say this all the time, can you exhale during the hardest part of an exercise and really use that breath to kind of exert that force? Can you control your movement with your breath? The last thing I want you to think about are comfort and support measures. Wear a maternity belt, big belt. It can have straps, it can not have straps, but wear something that actually supports the tissues of your body, so it gives them a little bit more control. Can you, if it's appropriate for you and you're okay doing it, taking a pain medication that is approved by your care provider, and then also heat, ice, massage, chiropractic, acupuncture, acupressure, really doing things that are helpful in pain relief, so comfort and care measures. So those were our 4 things that I wanted to mention today. And you can apply most of these during exercise and movement. The last few, other than the weight belt, have to be done outside of your movement area, but they are still comfort measures, support measures that can transfer into making you feel better as you're moving throughout your workouts. I hope this is helpful. As I go on in my pregnancy, I'll probably pop in here a little bit and maybe check in with you to see if these things have helped you. If you would like some guidance and some support about how you can start your pregnancy out stronger, or you can work out a little bit more informed during your pregnancy, we have a freebie over on the Stronger Mom Collective website. It's strongermomcollective.com/pregnancy. Go grab that. You'll also be put on our wait list to find out first about our pregnancy program that we're launching at the end of this month. So again, I hope these things have helped you. We'll be, publishing this and posting this so you can rewatch it on all our social media. Thanks for being here with me. See you next time.